Tebogo Tsietsi Mashinini and Kotso Siatlolo. Are these names familiar? For those who don't know, they are the names of students who changed South Africa's history. They were youth leaders who organized the Soweto student uprising in 1976. So ahead of commemoration events tomorrow, President Cyril Ramaphosa has registered his concern that today's youth do not fully understand the importance of the event. But 45 years later, do young people really don't understand the sacrifices that were made at the time, and what does that mean? To unpack this, I'm joined by communications specialist Mohau Bosiu. Mohau, thank you so much for your time on the lead this afternoon. So the president indicated this week in his open letter that he's quite concerned that a lot of people do not understand the significance of that day. Do you find that this is indeed the case amongst young people?
Thank you, Clement. It's good for the president to be concerned, but I think the real question is, what is the president doing about that concern? Because that concern that there is a high-level number of young people who may not know about the significance of June 16 is indicative of the work that is being done by the state, because the president really is a pathfinder, and he embodies what the character of the country should be as a president. So yes, it is good that he is concerned, but I think it's indicative of the state we find ourselves in as a country, that young people perhaps may not know about the history of 1976 uprisings, but the youth today are also faced with their own unique challenges, such as the grinding poverty levels in the country, and the very increasing at a very alarming rate is the unemployment, especially the youth unemployment that is skyrocketing each and every time. So that is really what should be the concern.
Yeah, I mean, that unemployment amongst the youth is at over 40%. So it is indeed, has been skyrocketing for some time now. So obviously, we can't forget about the compromises and the sacrifices that were made by the students back in 1976. But how do we balance that, understanding the significance of that day and what the youth at the time did? How do we balance that with trying to ensure that we prioritize the challenges facing the youth today, and we use that motivation and what happened in the past to prioritize those challenges you mentioned that are facing the youth today?
Education, of course, is paramount in the country and in the development of young people, so that they can better themselves and so that they can also craft a future that ensures that them and their children can have happy livelihoods. Because how we measure society's success is through its people. So how do we balance this history for posterity's sake is the question you ask. I would make a suggestion that to do that, you need to invest in education, but education beyond the formal class where people sit each and every day to listen to a teacher. I think we need a lot of informative centers around our communities. We need sports development. We need a coherent policy framework for around young people, and it has to center around the pillars of education, and not just education in the classroom. It has to be education beyond the classroom. We need things that are character building, such as functional sports facilities, and this needs to be a coherent approach that is led, of course, by the governing party, by the governing state, as well as the other entities that exist within a society. To balance this disrupted about how do we balance the importance of this history with where we are today. I think education is very key. Young people, yes, need to know about what has happened in this country, the injustices that was suffered by our people at large, but they also do need to know that the young people of 1976 were not just apathetic, they were very active citizens who stood fighting line to protect the identity and the diversity of our country. Because what the apartheid state machinery tried to do was to annihilate all our cultural production by enforcing a new cultural tool, which was the language that could be defined as the language of the oppressor. And to make sure that we balance the knowledge of this history for posterity's sake, we need a coherent policy framework around young people. And it has to center on education, and I would venture to say that education beyond the classroom.